And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage. And today you're joining me on our podcast, Leveraging Thought Leadership with Erica Dhawan. So say hello, Erica.
Hello, great to be here.
Thanks so much. It's good to have you on. Let me give everybody your introduction because I sometimes forget how well I know folks that are on and other people don't. So let me make sure I give you the proper introduction. So Erica is a world-leading authority on connectional intelligence and the founder and CEO of Cotential. Through speaking, training, and consulting, she teaches business leaders innovative strategies that increase value for clients, deliver results, and ensure competitiveness. She's a co-author of a best-selling book, Get Big Things Done. She's got a podcast, an award-winning podcast, Masters of Leadership. She's a classic underachiever. She only speaks at places like Davos at World Economic Forum, works with companies like FedEx, PepsiCo, McGraw-Hill, writes for Harvard Business Review. And then just to put some icing on the cake and make her and her folks proud, MPA from Harvard, MBA from MIT Sloan, and a BS in economics from the Wharton School. So, wow, that's impressive.
I
knew that.
Prove myself.
What's that?
I guess I'm constantly trying to prove myself.
Yeah, exactly. Aren't we all? Right. So anyway, I'm so glad that you joined us today. We have had the opportunity to work together several years ago when you were getting the book out, and you're pretty creative in terms of things that you're doing to get things out there in the right way. So maybe tell me a little bit first around what is connectional intelligence and what does Cotential do. Let's start there, and then we'll move into how we get that out into the world.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with a little bit of background. So in my 20s decade, I worked on Wall Street as an investment banker. I worked through the Lehman Brothers crash. Then I completely switched gears and did my graduate work at Harvard and MIT and stayed on as a researcher. And my guiding principle and research question during that journey was, how do we work in a radically different way today? I worked through the bankruptcy and really realized that the Lehman bankruptcy and really realized that it's not what teams do, it's how teams work that leads to greatness. And it was also at a time about 10 years ago when we were seeing this great multi-generational shift with millennials rising in the workplace. And I began to really ask, what do millennials want? Why do we see this major disconnect in the workplace and all of these new consultants talking about generational change? And what I found when I dug into the research was that asking what millennials want was actually the wrong research question, because we all often want the same things. Instead, What I really saw was that there was a new mindset here to stay, a connected mindset around how we leverage teams and networks outside of traditional silos that was actually key and different to our 21st century connected era. And that key skill set was what I called and coined with my co-author called connectional intelligence. So if you think about what emotional intelligence was in the 90s as a key trait, connectional intelligence is a modern day skill. It's how effectively and strategically we leverage all the networks we have access to create value. So this is not about networking. It's not about quantity connections. This is about leveraging the quality of connections we already have to create value. And what I did through my research is develop a framework and a methodology for leaders in companies, in universities, in hospitals and beyond to be able to build the skill of connectional intelligence within their people, to assess themselves on their connectional intelligence, just like EQ, and also to design initiatives that allow people to be rewarded and recognized for their connectional intelligence, which wasn't always part of the performance review, but is often very critical to those that need to rise as leaders of today's organizations.
There's a lot there. So let me unpack that a bit, because a couple of things that I look at or hear maybe a little bit differently, right? So research-based, that always makes life a lot easier for when you're looking to move and scale it, right? This isn't, based on your energy or your charisma, although you have plenty of that. This is research-based, right? And then I heard loud and clear methodology and framework. So you obviously can't see it because we're not on video. That brings a smile to my nerdy face. And the reason it brings us a big glow to my nerdy face is when you have a methodology and a framework that's based on research, it is so much easier to develop almost anything in terms of products, offering solutions to make it teachable, right? Because if you were just to come out to me as a keynoter and say, I've got this concept on connectional intelligence, and I believe this is the way people react today, and this is the way millennials are making relationships. I'd look at that and go, yeah, that's sort of cool. And then, your 60 minutes is up, and I'd probably applaud, and I might buy your book and read it. But then I go on and continue to, not do anything differently. By the fact that you've invested in a methodology and a framework, means that you can break that apart and now teach it. So can you touch on sort of how, from just a business efficiency standpoint, because this is a business, how the model and framework have helped you as you've moved into other things?
What I found very quickly is that the best way to scale connectional intelligence was actually by studying other models that actually scaled. And you know this well, Peter, but I looked at models like Six Sigma and studied how it rolled out at GE and why it was so effective, because there was a model that people could measure and it was tangible. And then I looked at emotional intelligence and Myers-Briggs, how they really took the assessment path and used the assessment as the hook to train the trainers and certification programs. And as I really first took a step back and studied those models, that, was what guided me thinking about what's the methodology and framework that makes the most sense for connectional intelligence.
Well, what's fascinating to me about that is the spectrum, right? So typically, almost as a stereotype, if you will, you have the Six Sigma folks on one side, process folks, engineering folks, supply chain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the EI people on the other side of the house. And you just looked at both of those, irregardless of the essence of the content, and pulled something important from both and blended it into how you run your business. So really, really, really interesting stuff there. Thank you for sharing that. Tell me what a typical month in the life of Erica looks like.
Great question. Always changing, but I'll give you an example. So I, the majority of my work over the last 3 to 4 years since my book on connectional intelligence came out has really been about educating the market on what connectional intelligence is. So, to give you a sense, Walmart, the brand, just rolled out unconscious bias and emotional intelligence training in the last 2 years. Now, those two thought leadership topics have been around for 20 years, but it took them 20 years to really build the credibility and engagement model. So what I do.
But let me just unpack something you said there, because there's so many nuggets that you're putting out. I don't want to rush by them. The good news about having something totally new in the marketplace, and your stuff is quite different and innovative. This isn't, yet another take on leadership or management or agility. When someone says connectional intelligence, the first thing someone has to respond is, what the heck is that, right? It doesn't immediately resonate to me as leadership, management, sales. So it requires an explanation. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing in that it's unique and it's different and it's based on a model like we talked about. But it's I don't want to say bad thing, but the burden that you've now put on yourself, and you sort of alluded to this, is you have to now educate the market, and you don't get paid to educate them on what it is. You get paid when they deploy your solution. So can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I chose the path of I'm creating a new market, but just like Daniel Goleman did in the 80s and 90s with EQ, I made that commitment, which is a commitment, of course. And so as part of that, I have understood that the first 5 years of that, I have a set of solutions from assessments and train the trainer certifications that people can use. But really, what people are buying right now at this initial phase they're buying keynotes and workshop engagements where they can learn about this topic and be introduced to this topic. And they're also buying assessments. So I developed with a psychometrician a connectional intelligence assessment. Think of it as the modern day Myers-Briggs for collaboration. And I always use parallels of similar past assessments that help my clients understand it.
So let me just touch on the business side of that. So right now, I'm trying to figure out how easy have you made it for me, your target market, to bring you on board and spend money with you. So I can buy a book that's $20 or whatever. I can bring you in to speak, whatever that's going to be, right? You can do workshops. But tell me about these assessments, because I'm a big assessment fan, because it's a classic build it once and sell it multiple times. And, given that you have a validated model, it's real. This isn't, walking to Bloomingdale's in Europe, pear, and I'm an apple or something like that. But tell me about the sales side of an assessment, how that sort of changes the perception of you in the marketplace.
Yeah. So, since my book came out, I have never left the room of a speaking engagement, of a panel session without actually offering
Yep.
access to the to a teaser connectional intelligence assessment to my audience.
Yep.
So through my keynotes over the past few years, and I do about anywhere between 3 to 6 a month. What I've built is a community of about 25,000 people that have opted into my list to take the assessment and learn from the assessment.
Wait, let me again. There's brilliance in what you're talking about. So 3 to 6 a month is a lot of keynotes for most people, right? Um, but you're building community and you're building your followership. There are systems and processes underneath that. What I see all too often is people speaking 3 to 6 times a month, but speaking is jump on a plane, get to Phoenix, do my thing, do a great job, go home. And they don't have the right systems and processes there to make their job easier and to support them because obviously if you're building followership, there will be another book and there'll be other things that you do. Those are your peeps. That's your tribe. So tell me the systems and processes that you've developed and deployed to grow and leverage this.
Yeah. So the first system I use is, and I'll give you a couple of examples.
Yep.
I use a tool called Join by Text
Mm-hmm.
in every single one of my keynotes. Have you heard of it, Peter?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so it's a simple texting app that allows anyone in my audience to sign up to get access to information from me. And I always offer our assessment as an initial tool that they can use individually. And so,
Wait, I'm going to tee you up. Let's try it out now. Why don't we? Can we use it now?
yeah, if you are in the United States, you can get access to it through your mobile phone. If you're not, you can go to my website. But if you're on your mobile phone, you can text the number 66866 and type in my first name, Erica, Erica, in the text message. And instantly you'll get a response. And all you have to do is type in your email address and you'll get an instant link to access to my assessment, where it takes about 10 minutes to help you better understand your own profile of connectional intelligence. What this instantly has done after every single keynote is allowed me to gain and build a relationship with anywhere between 50 to 70% of my audience. I mean, the engagement level of this has been astronomical because it's so easy and it's by their phones. It's not something they do after the room. It's when they're excited, they have the high momentum. The second thing that I offer.
So let me quantify. So you're probably growing your list at, I don't know, 700, 1,200 people a month, depending on the size of the audience.
Yes, that's right.
So when you go, by the way, for your next publishing deal, if you chose to go through a traditional publisher, guess what? That's going to stack the odds in your favor. And even if you self-publish, which there's nothing wrong with that, those are the peeps that want to hear from you again.
Exactly.
So that's fantastic.
Exactly. The engagement rate, once they've also signed up, is incredibly high. It's up to 30%, and the average open rate is 2% for newsletter emails. And
you're delivering value. So let me again, the assessment, it's not something I've seen before. It's not something I've taken before. It's highly relevant because I've just seen you speak. It's giving me a personalized information about me, one of my favorite topics, right? You're not just giving them an article from some journal from 7 years ago that you didn't write. I mean, it's smart. It's you put the effort into that. So that's why you're getting those open rates and those response rates.
And so what that does is it helps me acquire a set of interested leads. Yep. And it offers value to them. But from there, what I begin to offer them is a set of opportunities to buy other solutions from me. So what I have from them now is their email addresses, but I also have a group of people that have taken the assessment.
Yeah.
Typically what happens from there are people that have taken the assessment want to know what their profiles look like across their team, or they want to know what a 360 would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so immediately I have a base of leads that I can follow up with these set of additional solutions to understand how to use the assessment. So, oftentimes people might take an assessment, but they won't know what to do with it without hiring us for additional service or a workshop.
So you're giving away the proverbial razor, right? You're in the blade business.
And
Yeah.
I really learned over time, this took me time to learn, that if you don't collect any data from them, it's very difficult to be able to offer them real value.
Sure.
So, one of the most powerful things thought leaders can do is bring new ideas to the table. But I also think is providing our audiences with data that allows them to make sense of their own experiences, and to structure it in that way. And so that's
Yep.
been the journey. The other few things I do are, when I'm with an audience and I have a list of the audience names, I
Hmm.
work with my assistant. We often LinkedIn connect with every single one. It doesn't take that long. If I get business cards, they instantly go into my lead prospect system called Contactually, where I
Hmm.
track speaking prospects, active prospects, long-term prospects, and continually review that on a monthly and quarterly basis for to
So again,
maintain
let
my
me.
keep in touch and follow up strategy.
So again, we're going through this quickly here. 90% of author speakers and thought leaders that I deal with, and I deal with them all around the globe, don't have this level of sophistication, discipline, systems, and processes, right? Because what I'll hear often is, "Oh, I come off stage and people love me, and five people gave me their cards, and then what happened? Well, depends on where I was going next. Maybe I followed up, maybe I didn't. I mean, you've got an airtight system, it seems like, right? So the LinkedIn piece, some would say, "Oh my God, I don't want all those many people on LinkedIn," but not only are you connecting to all those people, but you're filtering through that on a monthly basis and mining for gold, right? Um, Tell me about a little bit about the help that you have, because it doesn't necessarily need to be you spending your days probably not clicking away on LinkedIn. What does the system, the sort of the staff look like to help you do
Yeah,
this?
so I have a very lean approach to pretty much everything. Test and learn. I don't have any full-time staff. I have a set of contractors. I have an
Yeah.
assistant through Zirtual, a virtual assistant
Yep.
system who I pay for 16 hours a month, and that pretty much covers it. It's pretty simple. I do have other interns and other free staff
Yeah.
that I work with, but it's really lean. And what I've done now that I have a community of about 25,000 or so by email, I have about 11,000, over 11,000 followers on LinkedIn. Um, I've
Hmm.
thought at this point, and it took me about 2 years to build that through speaking, through offering the investment,
Sure. Sure.
is I've focused on how can I repurpose my content and offer new sources of value to this community to drive consistent engagement and follow up sales. And so I started.
So what you said, one of my favorite words. So which probably not most people's favorite word, but repurpose. I'm a big fan and advocate, and I'm always pounding on the repurposing drum. Tell me what that means in your world.
So, what I've really tried to do is take the elements from my book, which I really wrote in 2014, and help make them actionable in different ways. So, I have a podcast called Masters of Leadership where I interview other people, but I also speak about innovative ideas and
Hmm.
topics. So I'm often repurposing a lot from there. I have a column in Forbes and I write in HBR, and I'm often pulling stories from my
Hmm.
book for those different cases. I've done video series for companies where I'm constantly reusing that content. And most recently, just this week, actually, I'm launching a video series on LinkedIn where I
Oh,
directly
awesome.
speaking to my audience on videos. Check me out on LinkedIn and join the community there, where I am sharing
Yeah.
videos of insights and tools for individuals to become better masters of leadership. And so a lot of the concepts I've had over the years, the ones that are resonating most, are being repurposed and shared there.
And the repurposing is this is sort of the exact same way that I define it. What it means is that you don't need to constantly create a new concept, a new idea. You know what the market, what has resonated with folks. It's really a translation issue across modalities, right? So if you do a piece in HBR that takes off, interesting. Now you can do a video based on it. Now you can use some of the questions or whatever that was in there in your podcast. You don't always need to carry the burden of creating that new thing, moving it into multiple modalities, because it's such an amazing world that we live in today, that people have so many options on how they consume and prefer to consume their content, and a little bit of creativity goes a long way there. So I love what you're
Yeah,
doing.
and It's been through this journey of actually understanding what's worked with connectional intelligence that has actually helped me think about smarter strategies as I'm working on my next big idea in thought
Yeah.
leadership, and how I might do that differently. So the next area of research that I've delved into over the last year, which I have a book in the making, but it won't be out this year, is on the new rules of
Okay.
digital communication and the new subtext of how we understand what people really need when up to 80% is virtual
Okay.
communication. And instead of just, writing one white paper and doing one webinar and then just writing the book, which is what I did last time, I've taken an approach.
Right.
I wrote a white paper. I've started to run workshops on this concept before the book is out, and in keynotes. I've launched this Masters of Leadership video series to understand what my
Hmm.
audience resonates with most, and I'm going to really use those findings and insights to make sure that I'm designing the book that my audience really wants. And
Right. So the world is your R&D lab, right? Because once a book is out, it's out. So I love that you're methodical about testing concepts. So if you had a concept, one of the easy ways to sort of test if it resonates is to put it out in a keynote. And if it went over like not so good, then you go, okay, glad I didn't spend, 60 pages writing about that one. How do I tweak it a little bit? Almost like a comedian working their set, right? You can constantly test it, tweak it, refine it until you sort of nail the essence of it. And again, a lot of people are afraid to sort of preview the new thing. My opinion is that's a bit silly. How would
yeah,
you
I don't think
react to
we
that?
need to preview to tell everyone our book's coming out if the book's going to take 2 years, right? But previewing the ideas is
Sure.
really powerful. I just published an article about the ideas in HBR just 2 weeks ago, and now I'm getting engagement from that.
Hmm.
So I'm testing out what people really
Yep.
resonate with, and so it's these simple. I really think that this reverse way of doing it now is actually even better. But I would say that I couldn't have done that not without an audience. And I needed my first book to build the audience. So I actually could work with my audience to shape the next big idea.
Sure. So let me, as we start to wind down here, there's really a ton in this in terms of the systems and the processes and the technology and the repurposing. Um, you're also sort of eating your own dog food, if you will, right? So you are the embodiment of connectional intelligence. So tell me, normally I would say, but I feel funny asking you this question. I'd say, talk to the Erica of 20 years ago, but
Yeah.
in your case, that would be probably too young, given how young you are. But out there today is somebody 5 years younger than you, probably no more than 10 years younger than you. That's sort of thinking about this, right? That's sort of thinking, I've got something in me. I've got this concept. I want to explore this. What would you advise them to do, and maybe more importantly, what not to do, as they, because there is no sort of
Yeah.
MBA in thought leadership that's given out at Harvard, right? So tell them the Erica School of how to be a thought leader in
Yeah, absolutely.
90
Well,
seconds.
first, and this is completely unsolicited, is call Peter and get advice. Follow whatever you say,
Oh,
Peter, because you have such great wisdom around how to really become a thought leader. And you helped me on that journey when I launched Get Big Things Done. A few other.
all right, you have me speechless, which anyone that knows me knows that's right. But thank you, and I have very much enjoyed our work together, and am grateful and proud of watching what you've done. I just going on a tangent here. You and I were both in London a couple
Yep.
of years ago at the Thinkers 50. So I was invited, and you were there, and I felt like it was my child, and you're not the age of my children's, like ballet recital that you were recognized by the Thinkers 50, and I was just so proud of you, and I know behind the scenes all the work that you've done. I mean, uh, you're making a difference, and you're being recognized for the hard work, and I know all the hard work it takes. This is not luck. You are a grinder, and I mean that in the best way. But anyway, back to the our regularly scheduled program. We can resume the
Right.
love fest because
Yeah,
it's here. But
no,
thank you
absolutely.
for that.
I think it's similar to what you said. I think it's the key to being a thought leader is having an idea you just can't stop sharing, and I think that's important. I think it starts with
Hmm.
really focusing on writing your ideas. I started in the millennial space, and I realized that my research had nothing to do with age. It was really leadership skill set that's critical to the 21st century. And so I think, I think the key for someone out there who wants to build their thought leadership is just start writing, write in a blog, create your own blog. Don't wait for permission for anyone. Work on your ideas over time. It doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning. Share them. You don't have to share them all online. You could share them with in community at a dinner table. The second thing I would say is study from others, those other wise people. I got a chance to study under amazing thought leaders like Peter Senge and Otto Scharmer at my graduate universities. But that could be studying them through their blogs, through their books. You don't have to be in the same office in them or at their keynote. There's so many different ways you can sort of fuel your own mind. And then the last thing I would just say is this is grit. This is not about, I have never been interested in fame. I've never been interested in being noticed. I've been interested in focusing on what I care about. And when you focus on issues that you care about because you've seen the problem and you want to help other people deal with the problem. I worked through the Lehman collapse. I know how horrible that was, not only for that company, but for the world. I don't want that to happen again. And I know that was a crisis of connectional intelligence. And that's why I do what I do now. And so really focus on what is the purpose behind what you do, because that will drive all the grit and hard work that you need to succeed. And don't get lost in the flashy blogs or being on stage, because at the end of the day, that's just a tool to help you reach your purpose.
Exactly. Well, awesome advice. This has been amazing. I'm going to go back and listen to it because there's so much in here, and I want to make sure I extract all the value from it. So how do folks, how do they find you? They just ring the buzzer and the doorman lets them in, or how do we find you? And how can we get in touch with you?
Check me out at ericadhawan.com. That's my main website. My corporate website, if you want to, work with us or check out our assessments, is potentialgroup.com. So think of potential, but this is potential. And I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn. Check out our video series in the Masters of Leadership podcast too. And thanks so much, Peter, for having me join.
Oh, this has been awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Thank you. To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.